It's the first Thursday in May, and that means it's the National Day of Prayer. The day is designated by Congress for all to turn to God and to pray. And this year, during the pandemic, it's taken even of a greater meaning. Joining us is Pastor Nick Hall. He is the founder of Pulse Ministry and the host of Bible Quarantine. Pastor Hall, thank you for being with us.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course. Well, on this day of prayer, are you seeing that people are turning to God or to their faith even more than they have in years past?
You know, we've been a part of this gathering for 10 years. We've had the largest gathering in the nation. And tonight, there's going to be simulcast events happening from Washington, D.C., North Carolina, Minnesota, across the nation. We really feel like there's more hunger now than at any time in recent history. People have been stripped back from jobs, from normal social circles. People are home, and searches for faith are double or even triple in some studies. People are searching for answers. We think now is the time when we need to turn to God in prayer. We need divine intervention.
Pastor, I think there's two groups of folks right now. One group that's leaning on their faith to get through this time, knowing that this is the rock that they lean on in tough times. Then there's another group of people, and I don't know how big it is, but you hear it from time to time where people go, why is God doing this during this time? Why are we being subjected to this? What do you tell people who you hear that from?
Yeah, I think this is a difficult time. Our faith teaches us that God is in control over all things. I don't believe that he causes oftentimes when the hard things happen, but he can move in the midst of them. And when people ask, where is God in these moments? I would point to all of the responses of the men and women of faith, people leading the charge on the front lines of healthcare, on the front lines of serving the poor, the least of these. Throughout history, it has been men and women of God who feel moved by the Spirit of God towards acts of love and compassion. And so I do believe there are miracles and things happening, but even for people who don't believe in those supernatural things, the natural reality is that men and women who have faith are more charitable, they're more generous, they're giving more of their time and energy. And those are the things that I think are making the difference during this crisis.
You know, Pastor, you mentioned all the people that are starting to look to faith. How have you seen people grow in their faith at this time, even those who have already had maybe a heritage in their faith?
Yeah, I really think that this has been a time for so many people to recommit to what matters in life. I think all of us, without trying to do so, we put our hope in the wrong things. We put our hope in money. We put our hope in our status. We put our hope in our social circles. Even religious people put your hope more in a building or programming or institutions more than in the simple relationship that we can have through Jesus. And I think times like this, we've seen Bible reading go up. We've seen prayer going up. We've seen discipleship and just peer-to-peer engagement going up. These are the bedrock foundational pillars of faith. And a lot of the other stuff is just noise. And so I think this has been a chance for all of us to recommit to what actually matters when it comes to our faith, specifically what it looks like to follow Jesus.
Pastor, I mentioned this to Kellyanne Conway earlier in the show, but when I've thought of the National Day of Prayer, it's usually around this big gathering in Washington, D.C., something in the Rose Garden, the National Cathedral where everyone gathers. And it's sort of been synonymous with gathering. It's weird this year that it's happening all online. How does that feel to you? Is there a different flavor to what's happening this year because people can't be together in worship?
Yeah, I do think it's a different time. It's hard when we can't be together. Faith, specifically the Christian faith, talks about that our presence does matter. If there's anybody who could multi-site and live stream it in, it would be the God of the universe. And yet the Bible tells us Jesus came in the flesh. And so we do think presence matters. That said, I think that right now technology is giving an opportunity for many people who normally wouldn't be engaged to re-engage and consider their faith. Over Holy Week alone, we saw a Easter outreach that we've seen hundreds of thousands engaged before. This year, we saw 100 million people watch the broadcast. And so I just think there is exponential possibilities because of technology, because of this quarantine, because so many people are asking questions.
You know, that's an interesting thing. We talked about that a lot during Holy Week here. Do you think that when this is done, when we can actually re-engage, that the way that you pastor, the way that we congregate or worship is going to take elements of what we're doing now and go forward, right? So, yeah, we may go to church, but we're going to do a lot of other things online as well. Or will we revert back to Sunday church services and masses and do less online once we don't have to do it that way?
I think that there's a lot of stuff that will go back to the way it was. And yet I don't think that there is any more way it was. I mean, I think it's both and, right? So I think that their gatherings will happen. I think you'll see people starting to ease back into that, finding the rhythm between social distancing and having the chance to be together. I also think that this has kind of recalibrated us to think that this is okay to do a Zoom Bible study or to see someone on an unpolished cell phone video. And so I think that's going to be the new normal for the church and for all of culture in the days ahead.
Pastor Hall, we just have a few moments left. If people want to join in with you tonight, how can they do that? How can they find out more about that?
Yeah, nationaldayofprayer.com. There is information about tonight's gathering, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Will Graham, Rick Warren, Michael W. Smith. It's an incredible lineup, but really more than the people gathering, it's about encountering God, praying together as a nation, praying for healing, praying for the first responders, the healthcare workers. So tune in online. You can also follow on our Facebook page at Pulse Movement. It's all going to be live Facebook or live stream online.
Pastor Hall, thank you so much for being with us here today on this National Day of Prayer and sharing your faith and encouraging others to find theirs as well.
Hey, thanks so much, guys.
All right. Benny Johnson is here next with his meme of the week. Don't go away.